Welcome, everybody. Good morning, depending where you're in the world. Good afternoon, good evening. I always like to start with those three things since the pandemic. So, hope everybody's well. I see some of you say hi in the chat. Feel free to write. This is a two-sided conversation. We are all distributed around the world. Super excited to be hosting this. All of us together with Priscila, Stino, Carly, and Rob. It's going to be an awesome hour fireside chat about the one subject that is the most important and the most annoying, I will say, at least based on our conversation and prep yesterday, which is data, specifically data in customer success and how to drive more success from customer success. That goes internally and externally. We'll be talking about that later. Before we get started, please, everybody, if you have questions, if you have thoughts, write them down, and then we'll open the floor so we can write them also on the chat. We really want to do this as a conversation. I'll start with a very quick note of myself, and then I'm going to throw it to Priscila on the other side of the globe so that then we can introduce everybody. I'm Ilai. I'm originally from Argentina. I'm based in London. I'm a founder, like Rob said before. I don't sleep, and I'm now building a tool called Dolphin AI. You can read more on me being annoying on LinkedIn almost every other week. So I'm going to leave that for another time. I'm super excited about this. It's the second time that we do this kind of like webinar, and we have a super powerhouse of incredible people. I hope you are excited as I am. If you are open to that, everybody, open your cameras. It will make it much more engaging so that we can see everybody and feel that it's not just the five of us talking to each other, but everybody is here together. Pri, over to you.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to see you all. I'm still admitting people here. So if you see me looking around, it's because I'm admitting folks. They're coming in, which is great. I'm so happy to see everyone here. A lot of familiar faces. I know a lot of you know who I am, but for those who don't know, my name is Priscila Fletcher. I'm based in New York City. I am the founder of Latinos in Success. I'm also customer success consultant. So I help founders build their customer success and operations department now. More operations than not nowadays. So I'm excited to talk about data, and I'm excited that we're here to learn more. We brought in like three really, really smart folks in CS right now. We have Stino, we have Rob, and we have Carly. Three people that I know and that I really love working with. So I'm so excited that they said yes when we decided to do this together. And we're here to talk about data, something that's super important nowadays. If you don't have data, if you don't know about your data, you're going to be left behind. So we want to hear what they're doing, what's the advice, what's going on now internally and externally. So I'm excited, but I'm going to kick it over to Carly so she can introduce herself.
Thanks, Priscilla. Hi, everyone. I also recognize a lot of faces. It's so good to see everybody and some new faces as well. If you have never met me before, my name's Carly. And after spending 10 years in account management and customer success, I now coach customer success job seekers of all levels, from career transitioners to directors of customer success, specifically on their career growth. So we work with a lot of job seekers, and I did spend a lot of my own CS career in the data and business intelligence space. So data is very near and dear to my heart, and I'm excited for today's conversation.
Nice. So who's going to go next, Rob or Stino?
Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Rob, I think that you're next.
Cool. Thanks for the intro. Hey, everybody. I'm Rob Zambito. I am a 3-time customer success leader, full-time consultant, and I've had the distinct pleasure of spending the last decade or so in customer success. And I always feel really old when I say that, when I started measuring things in decades. But over that time, I've built and scaled 3 customer success teams, one of which became a unicorn, where customer success, it was really cool because we got customer success to own 2/3 of net new revenue, which was really cool. So we built it not only as like a support and onboarding function and a value function, but we took it so far as to make it a really proactive, highly revenue generating function as well. So at this point, I've worked with, I think it's 26, 27 companies as a consultant, running folks through a core 6-month program that we do. We've got a template library of about 90 templates that we've put together. It's my magnum opus. And then I also co-host the Daily Stand-Up podcast. We're looking for more guests if anybody would like to join. I think everybody on, all my co-panelists have all been on the show, including some audience members. Erica, I see you out there, Parl. So if you haven't joined, please do drop me a note, and I'll share my LinkedIn in the chat.
Awesome. So, hi everyone. My name is Stino. Legally, my name is Stijn, but that's a very Belgian name. Since I'm based in Belgium, the land of the best chocolate and the best beers, and you can't convince me otherwise. I've been the head of customer success at Whale for the last 4 years, been in customer success for the last 8 years. I have this strange attraction to startups. I thrive in chaos, but I also think if you follow me on LinkedIn, that you can see that from my posts. It's basically chaos galore. What else that you need to know about me? I fuck up a lot, and I have a podcast about that. Like, we fucked up, so you don't have to. Also, if you want to share your fuck ups, we are open to guests, because otherwise people will think that the only thing that we do on the podcast is fuck up. But so we want to bring in other people that equally fuck up, even like us, so you can talk about your fuck ups. 90% of our customers are based in the United States, so sometimes you can see me doing like Beyonce world tours throughout the United States. Just did one in February, are gearing up for another one in November. So yeah, super happy to be here, and I'm in awe of all the genius brains of my co-panelists. So ready to kick off.
Thank you. And thank you again for saying yes to this. I'm so excited that Eli's here with me. We're both coordinating this together, but we're ready to get started here. And I also wanted to ask all of you in the audience to share with us in the chat what type of field you're in right now, if you're in management, if you're in IC, just so we can have a understanding when we're answering questions as well, why that matters to you, and we can tailor that to more of what's going on in the audience today. But I'm going to kick things off here with a big question, and this question is going to be for the three of you, Carly, Stino, and Rob. But I thought we should start with the big one and figure, assuming that most of us are in customer success, why is data important in customer success? Like, what does that mean to you right now in your day-to-day? Ladies first. Carly, you can start.
I got it. Data's important because it's the only way you can be scientific about what you're doing. I think without data, it's impossible to know how you're performing, if you're improving, where you should be focused. We always talk about I want to be more proactive. I want to be more proactive, more strategic. You can't do that without data. So it's literally the foundation of everything we do in customer success.
Yeah, I can add to that as well. So my background before customer success is more in the social sciences. So I studied consumer psychology. I studied behavioral economics. My college thesis was on studying the psychological effects and biases that help people forecast future outcomes, which a lot of us in this room have to do. We have to forecast customer outcomes. Are they going to renew or are they going to churn and stuff like that? And the interesting thing that I realized is we were only as good as our data. And the better our data could be around the predictors of these outcomes that we were trying to predict, like in the customer success parlance, it's how well our health scores predict customer outcomes. We continued to find that we were only as good as our data.
Yeah, same. You can't make any well-thought decisions if you don't have any data. It's basically when your founders are asking you hey, how is the forecast of your expansion? And you're like, let me see how the wind blows. So in that sense, you can't make any conscious decisions when it comes to data. And I think not only when it comes to your customers, I think just also if you are a manager to just coach your team. If you are sailing blind in the dark on how they're performing on their book of business, it's very hard to coach them as well. So having data, it's not only super valuable for your customers, but also just as if you are a manager, of course, but just as an IC as well, you want to have insight in that data on how you are performing, on how you want to get better, how you are growing as an individual, whether if that's an IC, whether if that's management. I think just data all around works both ways within customer success, of course.
I agree. And yesterday we had a prep call just to talk about the theme and the questions, and we all agreed that we're going to share personal experience and what we're doing internally just to give you guys a better idea, not just fluff answers about data. But I totally agree with you, Stino. And this morning, just to give you a personal story, I was in a call with one of the vendors I work, and they came to us with recommendations on what we should do with the strategy moving forward. marketing team, and they brought zero data, they brought zero numbers. And I came back to them. I'm like, how am I supposed to make an informed decision here if you're not showing me the numbers here? I can't pause certain campaigns if I don't have what's performing well, what's not performing. So just this morning, I had that conversation, and you think people know, right? People understand. But I told them, if I go to my leadership team without any numbers, without any data, they're going to tell me to get the hell out of the room. So it's kind of like, for you to come without any numbers nowadays is just not acceptable, So we have to get better at, like, do I have the numbers? How am I helping my customers and my leadership to make informed decisions here?
And to add something to that, I also had a story this morning. I had a call with a customer myself, and I'm talking to customers. So I'm sharing and owning that relationship. My other part of the team is technical, is on the product. They don't talk to the customer, sadly. And it was super hard to explain to them exactly what the customer needed and he was sharing about. And there was no data unless I can actually bring the insights to my co-founder in this case, so that he can also feel what the customer was talking about. So that's just my personal from this morning. If anybody else wants to share something, feel free to bring an example.
I actually also have an example from this morning, which I promise we didn't plan this. I was up super early this morning putting the finishing touches on a training that I'm hosting next week, all about the customer success job market. And if anyone here is currently looking for jobs or has recently looked for jobs, you know how crazy it is. And more importantly, you know how much advice is out there, and oftentimes it's very conflicting advice. So something that we are super committed to is like tracking all of the data. And I mean, like, how long should your resume summary be? Should it be 30 words or 60 words? Which one is more likely to lead to an interview? How many bullets should you have? How many of your bullets should have a number? I mean, we literally track everything. So that's a recent example for me.
I really want to join that
should,
learning,
everyone
because
should.
I think it's going to be really interesting to learn about those actual data points
Yeah.
that we don't usually track. It's really valuable.
It's super cool. Yeah.
My example from this morning was putting together a dashboard at like 3 a.m. because I was just like up in the middle of the night, just feeling it. And I got back into Salesforce, and all the clients I've been working with lately, they're all HubSpot shops. And I love HubSpot, but I really I'm more of a Salesforce kid by nature. And so I was just like rolling up my sleeves, just getting into the data. But it actually came out of me getting called out yesterday for not having data for an assumption I was making by one of the CEOs that I'm working with. So
on that note, Rob, I want to ask you something, and of course this is open for everybody else in the panel, but one for you, given that you're talking about dashboards and also you're working with founders, you're a founder yourself also. And this one is about key metrics in CS. Essentially, we can think of metrics also related to data, but there are many different metrics out there. Which ones are those that we should focus on, and which ones are a little bit more buzzwords or vanity metrics, if we can call it like that, that are detracting us from the actual data points that we need to focus on to deliver and see?
yeah, I'm happy to speak to that. And I'll tell you about something called the area model of customer success that I've been working on. But it looks like Tracy has a question. So I figured, Tracy, what's going on?
This kind of ties into what you're about to talk about. I saw a post this morning when I was laying in bed before like delaying getting up, and posting was talking about the difference. And this might be helpful for everybody, I think, like regardless of what role you have, the difference between like really knowing your audience. So he was talking about essentially that it's not so much like the work that you're doing or like what you're talking about, or how you're presenting your information, but what you're actually saying. And that the C-suite really only cares about money. And so like if you come in and you say, oh, we did, reduced onboarding time by 30%, they don't give a shit about that, right? Like they care how much money did that make us or save us or whatever. And so I thought it might be helpful to hear from all of you about how you're able to translate the OKRs, the KPIs into revenue so that everyone's able to speak. And I think that this is helpful for even IC. This is what gets you promoted, right? Like being able to translate your KPIs and your OKRs into revenue so that you're speaking the language of the people who make decisions.
That's the perfect transition. That was like a perfect setup. So this notion that I've been working on, the area model of customer success, stands for adoption, retention, expansion, advocacy. And I want to speak to each of those because I think those are like the key things that get reported all the way up to the board. So even if you're on a support team fielding support calls, it's useful to think of how does every call you take ladder up to those bigger goals. And that can help do things like, I had a support team once that turned out to be a lead gen machine because they kept laddering up to our expansion goals. So adoption is product adoption. Now, to your point, Tracy, that does not make a company money. Product adoption, well, it can, depends on the model, right? If it's like a per seat model or something like that, it can make a company money. But a lot of times, like the regularity that somebody's logging in is not the mechanism by which a company makes money, but it does lead to the other ones. Retention, there's your dollars and cents. Expansion, that's what I was saying. My one customer success team was really good at, where we ended up making up 2/3 of net new revenue from our expansion motions. And then advocacy matters because it massively increases sales velocity. And that's something we don't usually think about. Usually advocacy motions are like way on the back burner for customer success teams. But if you can find a way to take the average like everyday affair of you fielding a negative NPS score, or you unblocking a customer who's stuck in onboarding, or you handling an escalation or whatever, and keep laddering back to that area model, then I think you'll be speaking the language of the board.
It's funny that you say that, Rob, because after our prep call yesterday, Priscila and I, we kept talking a little bit about the advocacy part of CS and how we can bring that earlier in the journey. And it's not just that end thing that you do, after everything else has been checked in the boxes. But if you can bring it earlier in the journey, can also support that kind of like ROI target in a way, the revenue target. And yes, definitely, it all comes down to money. Like, we know that in the end of the day. Don't know if anybody else wants to add something into kind of like the metrics side of things.
I can add something. I'm a super visual learner. So I think what Rob is describing is the same thing that I'm talking about, which is a goal tree. And basically what it's helped me and a lot of CSMs that I've coached do is take the like overwhelm and intimidation of everything has to map to money, because that kind of feels like this big, scary, vague thing. Like, how am I, a little CSM down here, supposed to make this map to business revenue? Like, that seems like such a stretch. But a goal tree, and if you Google them, you'll find a bajillion examples, really helps you break down like, oh, okay, all I have to figure out are like, what are the 3 or 4 levers that impact revenue? And then I can just keep going down and down and down. And eventually I'm going to find that through line.
I love that. And metrics that impact revenue, one more to that, going back to connecting what you said and what Rob said, I actually think that usage, it's huge. A customer that is constantly sticky to the product is a really great indication that probably there is no churn. There is less of a churn risk there than other areas. I experience a lot of customers giving me great NPS, but not logging into the product. That's a really great red flag for me. I saw some sway there.
Yes and no, right? Like, some of us are like, because sometimes it's kind of like they're using, but are they actually solving the problem that they can? And it's like actually the right people using the tool. So there's other questions that come with that. I've worked in companies where we tracked the usage, and that was not good for us because it was like not the right people were using that. The information was not going out to the leadership, and they were actually not solving the problem. So, but I just wanted to close the loop on the advocacy. I think Rob knows, like, that's my favorite part of the customer journey. So if you are working on a customer journey right now, just keep an open mind and remember that you can move the advocacy. At any point you can move that does not have to be the last part of the customer journey. You can move them. You can be strategic enough. You can think about what are some of the things that are moving the needle here for me, and they're going to give me numbers as an IC, right? Like for me, for example, I had KPIs, which is like get 3 success stories in 1 quarter, get 5 referrals in 1 quarter. So I had those clear numbers. And what that does is, like, at the end of the quarter, if you can show that to your leadership team, is like you can easily translate that into numbers, right? Because you're supporting marketing, you're supporting sales. You can easily like, okay, I did so much, I was so busy, but these are the numbers, and focus on what are those things. Because as a CSM, you can always be busy, but then at the end of the quarter, what's really moving the needle, and how how are you showing the numbers? For me, it was so easy because, yeah, there were like, sometimes was a stretch is like, how do I get 3 success stories in 1 quarter when I just acquired this book of business? I don't even know them, but it made me like get creative and stretch and really like identify those customers that were closer to that, the customers that wanted to be in the spotlight, the early adopters. So you're constantly pushing your brain and it's like, how can I do this in 1 quarter? It's doable. So just think about internally for you, what's going to move the needle, because that's what leadership wants to see. Like, did you move the needle with the 80 hours you worked this week? Or not. If you have questions, by the way, feel free to put in the chat here. If you don't want to come off mute, we can address them, but we're going to have like at the end, we're going to have 10 minutes just to answer questions. And we have some questions that were sent to us also. But if there's no questions, I have a question here for Carly and Rob. How do you use data for storytelling?
Should I go first this time since you went first last time, Carly?
Yeah, I would love that.
Okay, cool. So I use the term storytelling pretty often, and it actually sounds ironic when you're talking about data, right? I mean, data, you think numbers, you think the matrix, but the ability to weave a narrative through a complex set of data is a really cool art and science that we are tasked with doing in our jobs. So like an example came up on a webinar I did recently. It was around a proposal to implement an online university and to replace our manual hands-on training of users with an online university, which felt like a bold bet because we're like, can we really get away with this? Will there be customer pushback? Will there be customer churn? Will that amount of churn be worth the wins that we get for our efficiency? Do we even have a choice? I mean, we've got a downsizing team here. We've got rather a constant size team with an expanding customer base. And so what we did was we ended up building sort of a forecast, and we made assumptions around what the pros and cons would be and how much time savings there would be, what the time saving would translate to in terms of revenue saved, and then also what the customer risk would be as well. So does this create, X% more risk for the customer base such that we have Y% more churn and Z% less expansion? And so the numbers basically told us, based off of some testing, that there's a story here that we can tell. The story is that by implementing an online university, we're going to be able to save 10,000 hours of training time in 1 year and actually enhance the other metrics. This came up a lot. This comes up in board meetings all the time. That's what our CEOs do. Ilai definitely can relate to that. Telling a story around the big picture of where the business is, where it's going. And the framework that I like to use is called the WAG framework. So it's where we were, where we are, where we're going. I pulled this from Blind Zebra, if anybody follows their content. So where we are, where we're going is an easy way to report your successes over time.
I'll add on to that. So I agree with everything Rob said. The way that I think about data storytelling, and the simplest way I can explain it is the data has to be compelling. And I know that doesn't really mean a lot. It's like, yeah, it has to be compelling. So what does compelling mean? There has to be some sort of takeaway from the data. And this is true if you're talking to a customer, if you're talking to leadership, if you're writing a bullet point on your resume, it doesn't matter. There needs to be some sort of takeaway. So like this data that you're just like getting out there, is it good or is it bad? And how do you know that? Are you comparing it to a baseline? Are you comparing it to last quarter or the same quarter last year? Like, why should anyone care? Or like, what does this data actually mean? So I think like the simplest way to get better at data storytelling is just always compare it to something. Is this better? Is this worse? Why? How do we know that? And I think if you are limited in data, that can be hard to do, right? Like we don't all have perfect baselines, which is something that probably all of our customers ask for every single day. So if you don't have the data, one way that you can make it more compelling is to just create a hypothesis off of it. So the best example of this is like in QBRs when you're presenting, here's your adoption. And the customer is like, okay, And if you don't have anything to compare it to, at least give them some sort of hypothesis. Like, this could mean this, it could mean this, it could mean that. And guess what? Here are the 3 tests we're going to run to figure out which hypothesis is true. That automatically makes it more compelling. And you're already starting to kind of lay the foundation for telling a story later.
Thank you. No, this is awesome. And it makes sense, especially in QBRs, right? Where you see people coming in with numbers, but they can't talk through them and they can't explain. And it's like, have the story in the back of your head, understand the why and why that matters for them. Something I learned with Rachel Proven, like, so much. She hammers so much into her head, like, what's in it for them? What's in it for them? And
Not
always thinking about it, like when you go into a room, what's in it for them? Think about that first, and why should they care about your story, even if you have a story? We have some questions here too. Do you want to read it, Eli, maybe?
Yes, I have. I saw here, I saw some before, but I have one that it says, how do you use data to prioritize accounts to work on? And how do you use it to prove ROI to customers? I love that you brought already a question that we had also for later. This reminds me of something, Stino, that you were talking yesterday about proving ROI to customers. So maybe, I throw this one for you.
Yeah, I think linking back to what Carly and Rob said, it's all about indeed that storytelling. And basically what we've been talking about for the last 30 minutes is making sure that your customer is driving value from your product. Like only tracking logins or only tracking a couple of features, you are fixing a problem. So basically what you need to do is going back to the source of your solution that you're offering. A customer always comes to you because they have a problem. Maybe they're using it in something in a traditional way, something they just want to switch tools because it's no longer working for them. So you need to go back on what does it fix. So you need to check competitors or what they previously used. So in that sense, even if you don't have actual tangible data, so what Carly said, that storytelling is super important. If you're going into your QBR, you're going to ask like, hey, is it working better than before? If you're using, for example, a simple Google Doc, is it working now better? Is it faster? Are people using it? Are you hearing it on like the work floor? Those are like in the office room. Those are the things that are equally as good as data as like numbers. That is also data. So for that return on investment for us as well, what we've basically done with Whale was, again, thinking about the solution that we're offering to our customers, and then this simple research, how it would run if they use traditional tools, like, for example, for us, a competitor, quote unquote, is Google Docs to capture SOPs, right? So in that sense, we did research via ChatGPT, and there was actual research that people often spend 2 hours writing an SOP. We got data in our CSP that tracked that it only took like 10 minutes. So just that simple 1 hour and 50 minutes that they win back, you can easily like multiply that by the hourly rate of an employee. And that is actual tangible data. That is actual return on investment that the customer is getting. So if you put that off to the subscription price of Whale, it's as simple as that. It's a really easy way on like storytelling. And it's not the most nitty-gritty data. It's data that you can fetch yourself. And that is in the product. You don't need to have fancy CSP. Your development team has somewhat of a wishy-washy tool that they can track the amount of like, for us, creation or the feature usage. And again, that is very on the surface. Sometimes you just need to go back to basics, to what the problem is that you're solving as a tool. No one cares about the glitter that you're shedding as a tool. You're the problem solving tool. So you need to go back to the core of your company. And that is how we, for example, are still beating sales in revenue numbers. Like we have now until today, I think brought in 58% of the revenue this year so far. And again, it's just because we went back to the basics.
I absolutely love that you guys are beating sales with a lot of love to sales because I'm a founder and I'm selling all the time. I think it really shows the value that talking about data, CS brings to the table. Again, going back to why we're here. One note on that, and I'm going to read one more question before we move to the next one, which is someone once told me when I was starting my startup that it's like you can save money for someone, you can make money for someone, or you can de-risk something for someone. All those three are really great direct ways of proving a ROI in a way, going back to the metrics. I'll read one more, Pri, if that's okay, that I have here from Emily, because I think that's really, really a great question. Basically, I'm going to read it. So I'm curious, do you think it's possible to go from 85% NRR to 95% NRR as a whole CS team, or does that take a whole company to move the needle in 1 year? I think beyond the numbers, I think it's a great question about, is it a CS or is it a whole company responsibility?
It's a whole company. Let's be honest, everyone does customer success. We need to just like honor the chain. Like we wouldn't be able to do our job if there wasn't a product that wasn't selling, that wasn't built by developers. So in that sense, we're all linked to each other. And I think that is, we need to get the stick out of our asses saying that we're working in silos. It's not. Like, again, I keep saying that internally as well. Okay, sometimes sales has an ego problem. Got it. Developers are building the product. But marketing is marketing the product. Got it. But that's the thing that we're all working in synergy. Like, we wouldn't have a job if sales didn't sell. We wouldn't have a PLG motion if marketing did and product worked on a product that was PLG worthy and marketing wasn't marketing it right. So in that sense, CS, you have like a big say in that entire journey, of course, because like we're owning the most of the moments of truths that customer have with us. But other than that, like again, we're not here to expand or upsell if the product isn't ready or if there isn't any value from it. So in that sense, it's the entire chain of command. It's the entire company's job.
Sticking with the theme of data here, I would say we don't have enough data to answer the question because I agree with Stino like wholeheartedly. However, let's say that every team is working together and everybody is, collaborating really well. However, CS hasn't put any emphasis on expansion. Maybe the team is new or immature and they just haven't gotten there yet. If that's the case, then I would say, yeah, it's totally possible if you have no expansion motion right now, and that's why you're at 85 and not 95. But I think we would need more data to answer that.
I love that. In the same kind of like line of proving ROI, I don't know, folks here in the different type of size of companies that you work on, but I'm an early stage startup that is very different to an enterprise or to a mid-sized company. So a question for you is, how can CS teams prove/track their ROI if they don't have the tools to do it? Or if they do, there is a kind of like, not every team has CS tools. So maybe we can talk about some examples or how we can prove that, regardless of which tools you use. Stino, you were laughing. Go for it.
No, but the thing, yeah, tools is like an entire other like conversation that we can get into. But the thing is, like, linking it back to tools, sorry, I need to talk about it. Like, you don't need to search for another fancy tool. Like, let's be honest, today's day, my LinkedIn is flooded. Sorry, and Ilya, I know you're a founder, but my LinkedIn is flooded by new AI tools. Like, they're really growing like mushrooms out of the ground and they're only fixing one problem, right? I'm not saying that, but and you always have like multiple competitors into one same space. Like for the exact same problem, now you have 35 tools. Like, we're overwhelmed. And let's be honest, application fatigue is real. I can't be bothered for another login. I can't be bothered to link yet another tool to another tool to get it back to another tool and link different departments to each other. That is not the most efficient way of working. Like Carly said, if we want to know if it's a company issue or a CS team issue, we need to have the data. But if that data is scattered because we're using a zillion tools, that is not going to work. And also those AI tools, or those one-off AI tools, I like to call them, you can easily build them yourself if you know some good prompt writing. And again, if you know how to write a great prompt, you can build basically very, very limited tools yourself. Like whatever, and this is also data, and I'm more than happy to quickly like give an overview. But what we've built at the team at Whale, and this was also data that we didn't have any data on, but for our customers, we wanted to give them real value from the get-go. And that's more like we cater to a lot of companies, industries. So it was very time consuming for us to gather the data from like which company they were from, which industry, and what kind of features they could use in Whale. Like I've built with ChatGPT, like there were apps for that could give me that data, but I just didn't want to spend another $150. Where it's just easy to build it yourself. I've built this app with ChatGPT to basically that scrapes the data, gives me the industry. I can now say like, okay, I want to have use cases for these features. And now ChatGPT is just pumping out features per department on how I set. And it only took me I'm not going to lie, 2 days to build that from scratch and making sure to host it on a free platform. It didn't cost me any money, just $20 for my ChatGPT Pro. And I will do you even one better. If you just want to have the prompt, what I've used for your own company, shoot me a message, because that's the thing. We need to support one another. It's like, if you know good prompt writing, this is what I've just shown you is also data. It's data that I get from a publicly available company or a website. It's features that we use in our knowledge base, and I'm linking that data to the customer. And if the customer comes back with additional questions, is also data. And that is slowly but steadily tracking also return on investment further down the line. So yes, I'm a fan of a CSP. Yes, I'm a fan of data collection tools, but no, I'm not a fan of having the tool for the sake of it to just already basically take one part of your data and store it somewhere else. And then you have another tool for another part of your data. And I think nowadays, come on, application fatigue is real. You're not going to see how we have a saying in Belgium, you're not going to see the forest through the trees. I don't know if that's an actual saying in English, but basically you're just, sorry for another F-bomb, but you're just fucking yourself when it comes to that. Sorry, I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, I love that. And just to give you another example too, and thanks for showing your screen. This is like really amazing for us to see like real time and
I can now
actually do it.
show you also the use cases. So it generated and then it does it for all the features. And I added even like an additional feature where people just can simply select the use cases and then generate the email that can go directly to the customer.
Now we can get Stino to build apps for all of us here if anybody needs.
I will give you the prompt, you can build it yourself.
I didn't know you're a developer too. That's like a,
but that's the thing though, ChatGPT is your best friend if you know how to prompt write. Like he coded that basically for me.
Yeah, but that's another example that you can use the data, how much money you're saving your company by doing that, right? Like at the end of the quarter, at the end of the year, how much money did I save? How many hours of the team, of my customers? So think about the numbers. And something else I want to add too, because most of us will say, I don't have access to data, I don't have access to tools, I don't have any budget for tools. But think about what you have already. For example, in the community, 5 months ago, we started collecting data because we wanted to understand what are the resources that we need to double down? What are people coming in for? Like, how can we continue the programs? Which ones are the ones that we should deprioritize? And fast forward like 5 months, we are looking at the data now. We have a clear picture of like what the programs they're coming in for, what's important, what's not important. So we know where to spend our time. What are people coming in for? And we only use tools that we had already. We didn't buy anything else. We had Notion. So we're like, okay, we can build a form on Notion. We have Slack. So when the people sign up for Slack, they're going to hit the form first. They're going to answer, and then they're going to join the Slack. Because if they join the Slack before, they're not going to sign up. They're not going to fill out the form. So we just connected the Notion form with Slack, and now we have access to the data. So 2 simple steps. Of course, it took some help from our squad team and building things in the back end, but all resources that we had already and ideas that we had. And I was looking at the data. I'm like, wow, 5 months ago, I didn't have this. And now I do. Of course, we want to be better, but something is better than nothing. So start with what you have and use the tools that you have, see how you can. Because I also worked in companies where we used 10 different tools. And we, at the end of the day, we couldn't read anything. Nothing will connect. So it's also like, not helpful, not good. Keep it simple. We always talk in sales is like we use this KISS, right? Keep it simple, stupid. And this is like what we still have to use it everywhere.
I had forgotten about that acronym. It's really good. You're right. I like that one. I have a thought that maybe it's from something that Carly, you mentioned yesterday in our prep call, but it goes for everybody. We talked about metrics, we talked about ROI, we talked about even tools and showing the ROI of, building something internally. Carly, you mentioned something about credibility yesterday, which I think works both ways for internal, but also for external. So tell me a little bit about your thoughts in terms of how can we use data to gain credibility as CS, teams.
Yeah, for sure. I think something all of us in CS struggle with or strive for is getting the trust of our customers. I remember when I first started in CS, meeting with business executives who were like 30 years older than me and thinking, how the hell am I going to get this person to take me seriously? And I think that no matter how experienced we are, that always kind of sticks with us. Like, how am I going to get this person to trust me, to take me seriously, to want to take my advice? And so really what we're talking about here is how do you get credibility, right? Whether it's with your customers or with internal leadership. So if you're trying to go after a promotion or trying to create your own role or make a lateral move, you need credibility to do that as a starting point, at least. And to me, data is one of the simplest ways to gain credibility because it is fact and it is so scientific that there's really no fighting it as long as just make up the data and you can back it up. So it is one of the easiest ways to gain credibility. And then if you want to go even further, if you're trying to convince a customer to do something, well, like Priscilla pointed out earlier, give me the data behind that. That gives credibility to the suggestion or the recommendation. Same thing if you're trying to get a promotion. All right, give me the data. How have you moved the needle? I don't want to just know about your metrics that you're supposed to be tracking and you're supposed to be hitting. I want to know what other metrics you're moving. Give me some credibility. So, does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think that's super valuable. And like, as a founder, I'll say something that maybe will upset a lot of people. I don't care about the metrics. I care about what happens with the outcome of the metrics. I don't know if that makes even sense, but I don't care about a spreadsheet full of metrics and dashboards. It's like, I don't even care about that, but I care about what we do or what we did with the outcome that those numbers show.
Yeah, actually, you just pointed out something that I wanted to say but forgot, which is beyond just having data to give you credibility, I think just being data oriented gives you credibility. So to Eli's point, an executive, a founder, a CEO might not care what the actual numbers are, but they care that you're then creating hypotheses off the data and going to take some action to figure out the next phase.
I think that's a good point, Carly. I was just going to say often I realize when I show up to executive meetings, if I share data, then like Stino said, there's this so what question where you then have to have a fast follow, not just say, here's what I found, but here's the playbook I'm creating for it to handle it or prevent it in the future.
That reminds me I have one of my advisors and good friends. He's the head of research at Zapier, a very, very clever UX researcher called Noam Segal. And he talks about this thought process of what, so what, now what? And now with AI, we are in the now what? Like, now what are we going to do with this? It's not like, show me the number. So I think that's really interesting.
But also, if you're using AI on your data, like let's imagine that you have those spreadsheets, right? Because also before AI, I was literally the dumbest when it came to data. Give me a spreadsheet and I would literally cry. But that's the thing though, even if you're still in that position, if you're having those spreadsheets and you have a hard time interpreting them, also smart use of AI can go very, very far. If you just know what you want to become and keep asking questions, because sometimes I have the feeling, and I was guilty for that for the longest time as well. I had an idea, uploaded a spreadsheet, and I just really expected that ChatGPT gave all the things back that I wanted to hear. But that's the thing though, you need to keep asking questions, repeating or iterating until you have what you want it to become. And sometimes AI is such a buzzword. It's like ranch. If you don't know what to do with it, if you don't know how to dunk it or what to dunk in ranch, you are sometimes having the most awful flavors in your mouth. It's the same with AI. If you don't know on how to use it or how to write a prompt or what you expect from it, then don't expect that you're going to get good results. So in that sense, also there, if AI is a buzzword and it can help you really, really far, but it also can get you nowhere. So in that sense, leadership that is like literally force feeding AI on you, because I've seen that at Will as well. Like AI was a buzzword once it first came out, and leaders were like, but if you don't understand what it's capable of, if you don't understand on how to use it, stay away from it until you figure out on how to use it.
On the data aspect of kind of like this, about building credibility, especially internally, I think that a lot of us in startups and companies, at least I say myself from a founder perspective, we don't understand CS 100%. So I think it's really important to share that data with others in your organization so they understand how you're moving that needle. And I think that is where data plays a really important part for others to trust on what CS is actually accomplishing for the company. So for example, Stino, over 50% of income coming from CS is like, wow, that's huge. So yeah, that's a really good use case.
Yeah, no, this is really good examples too. I know we're coming at a time, so I wanted to give our guests like a chance to share with the audience like where to find them and their. I know Stino doesn't want to share anything. Nobody reach out. No, I'm kidding. And also like if you can share what's one main takeaway, and then myself and Eli can go last. But we can start with Carly.
I'm just sharing where you can find me. Is that right?
And also like maybe one main takeaway from this whole thing that we just talked about.
I'm taking away a lot from Stino's point about tools, and it's really highlighting for me like how quickly we are to say, oh, we have a problem, let's throw another tool at it. So I think that's a really big takeaway, and it's not just limited to data. I think it could actually be applicable to a lot of things. So that's a big takeaway for me, is just like, let's not over index on tools and try to see if we can make what we have now work for us. If you want to join my free training next week, if you are job seeking or curious about the job market, I'll drop the link in the chat. I also have a podcast where I talk all about career growth and customer success, job seeking. So I'll drop a link to that in the chat as well.
Thank you.
Oh, and I'll pass it to Stino.
Rob had his mic already unmuted. Rob, you can.
So,
Now I've said.
well, I'll go then. Top takeaway, 2. 1, I think the key takeaway, I forget if anybody said this quite so explicitly, but if you want to look good to leadership, you've got to know your numbers, not your anecdotes, but your numbers. And a lot of people here might not have access to that data. But even if you don't, if you feel gatekept by your organizations, just try to track what you can, even if it's just calls that you're having throughout the day. Everything from even down to the minute details around call duration, talk time, those types of things, whatever you can. The last thing I'll just mention, though, is a little bit of a spicy take, given what I've been seeing in the chat, is that be wary that data can be manipulated too. I think there's a Mark Twain quote that's, there's lies, there's damned lies, and there's statistics. So be aware of the fact that data that you use can and will be used against you.
Oh,
By the way, reminder, if anybody wants to join that podcast that I told you about, we've got some open slots coming up. So, and if anybody wants a quick customer success maturity assessment, I do those all the time as well, just to assess the state of your current CS org and where potentially I could be helpful.
And where can people find you? On LinkedIn, email?
Oh, LinkedIn's good.
Okay.
Email's fine too. I'll drop both in the chat.
Thank you for answering all the questions here, Rob, too. I noticed you answered and you gave like really in-depth answers here, so I appreciate that.
I can.
And now Stino, yeah, you can.
No, the main takeaway that I'm going, the goal trees of Carly was something, and also the acronyms of Rob were very, very eye-opening, because again, sometimes you need to just start on top and then work your way around. Work your way down, because sometimes you have the feeling that we need to start from the bottom and work our way up. And so that was really, really good, and was a really good reminder that even if you're heads deep in data, that you always need to link it back again to the core of your thing. So I'm definitely taking those acronyms with me, and I'm Googling boldface as we speak. If you want to find me, LinkedIn, of course. I've been made fun of since I still have a Hotmail email address. So if you can find it on my LinkedIn, you can definitely use that email address as well. Also, if you want to join the podcast, we fucked up, so you don't have to. Please feel free to reach out as well over there. Or if you have questions, me and Christy are answering everything on the customer success hotline. But most of all, I want to say, like, really follow Rob and Carly, because I have numerous people in my network that found a job via Carly and her help. Also, Rob is the most insane, brilliant guy that I've ever encountered when it came to data as well. So please give him a follow, because when it came to maturity of CS orgs, we had some interesting conversations a while ago. So also there, he is the one to follow if you want to talk about maturity of your CS org.
Thank you. Next time you got to host with us, Stino, bring that fire to it. I'll give my quick takeaway. I mean, there's a lot of takeaways, but I think one big thing is start with what you have and don't wait. Pick one metric, pick one tool, whatever it is that you have, and start. You really be impressed on like what I just shared with like 5 months of data that I didn't have 5 months ago. Now I understand what I need to do in the next 6 months for the rest of the year. And it makes a big difference. Even if you have just one metric, one tool, start with what you have and you'll be surprised. Ilai, do you have a takeaway?
I have one. I'm going to second what Olha, I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly, wrote in the chat, which is connected a little bit to what Stino mentioned before. I know it sounds really simple, but it's very hard to do, which is going back to that problem that you're solving for someone. And as a founder, I'm constantly saying that to myself and to others. But it's really hard to do when you're in the day-to-day and there are many fires, because that's what you do. You are constantly trying to deal with fires. And I think that stepping back and going back to the problem that you're solving for someone, in the end of the day, that customer is paying your salary. So I think that we should put them first. And going back to that source is super, super powerful in terms of data. So yeah, that's my takeaway in terms of data and customer success.
Awesome. And we're finishing on time. It's 12:59. So I appreciate you all like spending a full hour with us. I appreciate Rob and Stino and Carly and Ilai for doing this. I know we've been talking for over a month. I know we all have our schedule, but we managed to meet and do this because it matters. Community is always top of mind for all of us. We do this for you all because we care and we want to share as much as we can as whenever we can. So yeah. Oh yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn too. I forgot to mention that. Or LinkedIn's good. Yeah, you can find me there.
There you go. I was going to say, don't forget to also connect with Priscila, who also runs an awesome community I'm part of, and I'm very proud of being part there. By the way, we will be sharing the recording after, right?
Yeah, probably Friday morning because Eli is like ahead, so it's already afternoon for him. So Friday morning you get an email with a video and key takeaways you can rewatch and share. And we'll add the LinkedIn and emails there for you guys to connect with Carly, Rob, and Stino as well. And we'll probably post this on YouTube later so you can go back, see if you missed anything. But this is all we have for you guys today. If you have any questions later on, always feel free to message us. We're happy to answer. So thank you and hope
Thank
you
you
all
so
have
much.
a good day.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.